Hello everyone, Taki here. Today we're going to take a look at the new Aya Neo Ryzen Handheld, and I'm very excited for this first showcase. As I've already mentioned, this device is going to launch for international sale later this month, and I've been fortunate enough to test the prototype that you see here for the last few days. As you may or may not have already seen, the Neo has been in development for the better half of last year, and it's just getting to the point where the team is ramping up for mass production. I'm going to go over more of the device in my real review of it, but I want to quickly state that this is using the Ryzen 4500U with 16GB of LPDDR4X RAM and 512GB of SSD storage. Beyond this, the Neo comes with a 47 watt-hour battery that they state gives 6 hours of gameplay, and that's exactly what I intend to test in this video. The device that you see on screen is a prototype of a version that was exclusively sold here in China last year, and you can see that it has a transparent case. Before jumping into the rest of the device, I do want to talk about this case. When you're designing a device, you typically get a 3D printed version of your model for prototype purposes. After this, you make a CNC version of your device that's closer to the final version than the 3D printed one. This Retroid Pocket 2 case is an example of one, but it's a much lower quality case than the one in the Aya, which itself will be a lower quality than the final injected version that is being made right now. On the left side of the Neo, you can see that we have a clickable analog stick that resembles the Switch, but the resemblance ends with the rubber top. It's also worth mentioning that pretty much every handheld in this market uses these analog sticks from the same supplier, so the feeling is going to be the same. Below this, we have a bigger version of the Vita D-pad, which functions much better than it looks in this prototype stage, as you'll see later on in this video. Under this, we have our start and select buttons, an Xbox button, and the control for the LED lights. I'll cut off my studio lights so you can get an idea for what this looks like. These lights are only available on this limited edition version of the Neo, and I think that these are pretty cool, and they're nice to have when you're gaming at night. You can set them to 100% brightness or to a pulsating option, which looks far better in my opinion. It's a little unfortunate that this Founders Edition will be so rare, because this combination of LED lights with a transparent case looks beautiful, and it's the reason why I like this version of the Neo the best. Jumping over to the right side, and we have a set of decently sized input buttons that also function much better than they look. We also have our second analog stick and the remainder of our function buttons that make using the device easier. There's an on-screen keyboard button that you can call up and dismiss with the press of a button, an escape key, a button to call up the task manager, and a Windows key. I'll talk more about how these buttons work in real-world situations in my full review. For shoulder buttons, we have a set of 3D printed ones that unfortunately do not have analog input, but they are some of the most satisfying L2 and R2 buttons that I've used thus far. Near this is our large vent for the big fan in the Neo, and this along with the temps on this device are amazing. It is insane how quiet and efficient this fan is compared to all of the other Ryzen devices that I've tested publicly and privately, but you can see that this prototype case doesn't fully clip down near this vent. Near this, you have two USB Type-C ports, a headphone jack, volume buttons, and a power switch. The back of my prototype has this screen printed design with a bunch of information about the Neo, but I would most likely remove all of this to have an unobstructed view of the inside. One of the benefits about this design that I didn't think about when I first saw this last year is how nice it is to be able to firmly place this standing up flat on a desk whenever I want to use it with a mouse and keyboard. But the only downside to this is that the speakers are also located on the bottom, and it muffles the sound a bit. Like I've already mentioned, the battery is rated for 6 hours of gameplay, which is a bold claim, especially when we are dealing with a screen that's this big. But it actually does hold up. In this section of the video, I'm going to set the device to 5 watt TDP, which uses around 7.5 to 8.5 watts per hour when playing games that are running directly from the device. Before starting this test, I want to mention that this is an extreme use case, and when Aya is in its normal TDP range, you can play AAA games for 2 to 3 hours at good frame rates, and I will show those off in later videos. I want to kick this test off with something that will really push the Neo to its limits, and everyone knows that Space Invaders for the Atari 2600 is an underrated benchmark. Transitioning over to something a little more serious, we have GBA, which scales very well to this display. It's a little silly to spend this much money to play GBA, but you'd be hard-pressed to find something that represents these games this well. Retro systems like SNES leave us with some unfortunate black bars on the side, made worse by the fact that we already have a sizable border on the left and the right. PS1 fares much better with the DuckStation emulator coupled with widescreen support and increased rendering resolution. This Spyro game is a good title to use to show off how vivid the panel is inside this device. The majority of N64 is also within reach at 5-watt TDP, but games like 007 would really benefit from going to 6 watts to smooth out some of the audio dips in more demanding areas. Now let's go over to PSP, and we're going to try to push this system to its limits at this low wattage by trying to render the games at 3x resolution. I've mentioned this in another video, but the gun in this game is a good test of performance since it's easy to cause dips in lower powered systems. I will also mention that if there is a game that you'd like to see on this device, whether it be a PC game or an emulated one, you can leave those below and I'll try to incorporate them into future videos. In this God of War game, we are rendering the game at 2x resolution, and there are still some hiccups here and there, but the performance is pretty solid.
We can't defeat them all!
Just like God of War, Final Fantasy Type 0 is another demanding game, but this one actually runs with almost no issues at 3x resolution. As you'd expect from seeing how well PSP runs on the Neo at 5 watt, this device makes light work of Dreamcast. I'm probably going to do a standalone video just on GameCube, but I was happy to find 2 games that run very well at this low TDP. Wii was a bit more challenging to find a 3D game that ran well this low, but I was happy to see that Mario Kart runs without any major issues. We're going to finish off this low emulation portion of the video showcasing PS2, and I will say that this was difficult to do only because I did not enable any performance hacks to get more demanding games to run. With this limitation, you really need around 8 watt TDP to play challenging PS2 games at 2x resolution. For the remainder of this video, I'm going to showcase the types of PC games you could play on the Neo using this 5 to 6 hour gameplay threshold. For the games that you're going to see, I've kept the settings as high as they would go while maintaining at least 30 FPS. It may be hard to see if you're watching me on a phone, but I do encourage you to take a look at the display and see just how cool this device ran throughout this entire video. It's amazing to get this level of performance at such a good temperature.
Seen more hostile activity to the northeast.
Well done, darling. That's right. Start running. We're on the stairs. Down below.
It's the bat!
I hope you guys enjoyed this first look at the Aya Neo. I really like this device and I look forward to showcasing more of what it can do in future videos. If you want to know anything about the Neo, feel free to leave those questions below and leave a like if you enjoyed this early coverage. I'll catch you next time with another review. Happy gaming everyone. Taki out.